Welcome back to Let's Talk Trackmania. We are back. It is actually May and we have left you on January, but don't worry, we are just as beautiful and we are just as ready to talk about Trackmania's topics, which have built up a little bit since we last were here. However, you might have noticed a few little different things about what you might be seeing on your screen. We have come back new and refreshed, new and renewed, I suppose you could say. However, we also have a lovely new face joining us today as part of Let's Talk Trackmania. And of course, we have a beautiful face which is joining us once again. I do have my other two guests, or I suppose I'd say friends of you're not guests, you guys are here permanently, or prisoners perhaps. You guys aren't getting out. But we have joining us today, we have LuckersTurbo and we have Shorty. Welcome, guys. How are you both doing?
Let's start with a new one. Toby, how are you doing?
All right, let's start with a new one. Okay, hi for everyone that doesn't maybe know me. I'm Shorty. I'm playing this game for a lot of years already. Mostly I'm mostly like a driver, I guess. Yeah, I'm not building full speed maps since 9 years, so no, I'm not shorts. Just to make it clear, if anyone out there still thinks I'm shorts, no, we're not the same guy, but it's fine. If you ask me for a video, I'm just gladly gonna tell him about it. I recently moved out 2 days ago, actually. Yeah, I'm doing pretty fine since then because I'm engaging more with other people since then. So. Yeah, it's working pretty good so far.
That's nice
How
to
are you
hear,
doing?
Toby. That's nice to hear, Toby. I mean, moving out, I mean, people can still complain about your track of the days, you know, things will not change. But yeah, I'm also doing very, very good, actually. It has been a long time, and I actually missed this kind of sweet spot, the Tuesday you can always look out for. And after the events, you know, you slow down everything on Monday, you schedule your week, and then Tuesday again, bam, let's talk Trackmania. I really missed it. And yeah, I'm doing very fantastic. I'm doing very, very good. Also, my schedule is really rough with all the streams and all those things. And also, a lot of things have happened to me since the last time we've done this. But yeah, all in all, I'm doing good. What about you, Paul? So what about you? I mean, you were introducing us in this warm manner, but how are you doing?
I'm doing
a nice shirt.
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. And also, not to worry, we will get Shorty a Mickey Mouse t-shirt as part of almost the initiation rites of Let's Talk Trackmania. But I'm doing well. It feels like the last few months or so have just kind of blended together, so to speak. I got a haircut for the first time in about 9 months or something like that. So, you know, oh wait, everyone's dying. Okay, that's not
Hello?
good.
Hello?
Okay, I have no idea what is happening.
I think they can still hear us, but
let me see. Okay.
Okay, we are back.
Yeah, we are back.
Well, yeah.
Okay, no idea what happened there. We're just going to assume, you know, Shorty blew up the internet, you know.
Was it me or was it not me then?
No, anyway, yeah, I'm doing very fine. Thank you. I'm much in a better place now. I've got two lovely people to talk more Trackmania with. But for any who have not been here in a while, who have not, well, I suppose we've not been here in a while, so I suppose that's everyone, including us. But as a reminder for us, as a reminder for everyone else, of course, this is just our kind of place to discuss the most recent events of Trackmania. Of course, anyone in the chat is more than welcome to bring up any topics, any happenings, any things you would wish, you know, our viewpoint on, so to speak. But also kind of bringing everyone up to speed. Anything you might have missed within the last few weeks, or in this case, last pretty much half a year. But yeah, we will bring you guys as much information as we can. I mean, I sound a wee bit, you know, weird saying this, but an educated viewpoint, if you could believe it. But yeah, we'll give you guys our outlook on what's been happening throughout the past few months for this episode as much as we can without keeping you into 2 o'clock the following morning. However, just before we get started off, I will remind you all once again, it has been a while since I've said this, but of course, Let's Talk Trackmania is brought to you by the man behind the screen, who has brought to us a lovely, refreshed kind of package, a visual package, which I did get a little sneak peek at, but it's going to be for all of you to enjoy. I mean, I'm just going to be sitting looking at myself pretty much for the most of this podcast, but a lovely visual package for everyone else, and of course makes everything possible in terms of this podcast, the maestro Erwin Weber himself. But also check out esac.gg and also the social links for ESAC, which are available on Twitter as well. And also Mr. General Offensive, who has came on board with ESAC and is helping a lot with the graphics side. So big thanks to him, and big thanks to everyone who is currently helping out ESAC, and certainly helping us do our best for Trackmania. But enough of me talking. We've not been in this kind of situation for quite a while, Turbo. I mean, like I said, last time we spoke, start of January, and even then we'd had a Christmas break. It's been quite a while. I mean, if you give us a few kind of flashpoints, so to speak, if we'll say it like that, what's been happening this year so far?
Oh, man. This year was crazy already. I mean, I started the year with, maybe I should stop streaming and focusing on studies. But what happened? 2 Twitch partner applications. I'm a YouTube partner now. I passed every exam. So I kind of found the balance between streaming and also between my study. So it has been a blast. My channel has blown up, and it is just a lot of fun. And also thanks to Shorty, who's in here. He was one of the first like things where people were coming into the stream, having a nice talk. And we also had our Let's Talk Trackmanias there when matchmaking was coming out. So matchmaking really helped me. I was casting a lot of the main events, also organizing the German Trackmania Cup. So I've been up in a lot of things in Trackmania too, and was very busy in there. So definitely I cannot complain. I was very busy in there, but it didn't go the way I was expecting it to go. I thought I would step down from streaming, but now I'm here streaming 6 times a week. So that's how things are right now. So yeah, maybe I can pass the ball back to Shorty, because I mean, Shorty, I was talking to you in my streams more often, and I mean, you were also being up to streaming, you were building maps, but I mean, what are you doing? Maybe some of you might ask, what is Shorty doing in Trackmania else than just building maps and playing Cup of the Day? Maybe you can talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't actually a lot of more things that I'm doing in Trackmania. I'm pretty much just playing Cup of the Day, and recently started enjoying mapping as well a little bit, because I don't know why I started with it. I think the Cup of the Day is one of the best things Trackmania or like Nadio implemented in the new game, or in general implemented in Trackmania since a lot of years, I think, personally. I mean, yes, it's sort of like a TTC, just changed, but it allows for so many more things that you wouldn't be able to do in other tournaments. And that's where I started like enjoying mapping. So I'm building map concepts that wouldn't naturally work in other formats, I guess. So like a map with different routes where every single route was at least supposed to be equally fast. In the end, as you can figure it out, it didn't work completely to plan, but I think I'm pretty happy with it. And other than that, I'm just playing some tournaments that I like GTC. I did play that. Also because certain people like Turbo encouraged me to play it.
And you also built a very nice map for that.
Yeah, and I also built a very nice map for
map.
that map would have a story in itself, pretty much, because it almost got declined, but then it made its way into the final map pick somehow. But yeah, I'm just playing tournaments I like GMFO, for example, as well, which is a really wonderful tournament. Very. Yeah, I like hosting a lot. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm up to in Trackmania. I mean, as you said, I might start streaming. I'm thinking about it, but right now in my new flat, the internet isn't actually the greatest. But we're gonna change that. That's like the first new thing I'm gonna bring to this to this flat. So yeah, I'm gonna try some stuff then. And if it's going any direction, it's probably gonna be mapping, because I don't enjoy playing Trackmania that much. I don't like the grinding, so I'm rather building maps. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Scotty, what about you?
I mean, like in terms of Trackmania, I just really haven't been doing a lot of Trackmania recently. I've been more focusing on the work side of my kind of life, so to speak. But I mean, since we were last here, I've pretty much one of my only major involvements has been with ESAC through the competitive open map pool project and also through casting for Trackmania Grand League. But yeah, I just don't really find myself as involved in Trackmania, at least in the same capacity as I was previously. Not really sure why that is, to be honest. I suppose through our little heart-to-hearts through Let's Talk Trackmania, we'll eventually figure it out. But good to hear you guys have definitely been up to much. I mean, Shorty, I'm sure, with his better internet, will be in tip-top shape soon. But at least you've got one thing sorted about your new place. You're already much better at making your bed than Turbo is. So that's something at least we can...
You don't even see my bed.
Yeah. Oh, well, whatever that is.
You can still...
But we every time we would, just before we would be starting the Let's Talk Trackmania, I would be saying, to Turbo, make your bed before we go live.
But I made it this time.
Yeah, he did. He's progressing. He's grown as a human being since we've last been here in Let's Talk Trackmania. And that's a compliment. Don't you start getting your back up at me. But anyway, since we've got a good bunch of people here, we've got a lot of friends, a lot of new faces, and a lot of old faces back in the chat. Once again, I'll just remind everyone, of course, if you do have any topics since January, you folks have kind of wondered for our viewpoint on by any chance, thinking something happened in February and they've been stewing on it for 3 months, waiting for Let's Talk Trackmania to come back. Maybe that person's out there. So if you are out there, let us know. We'll do our best to cover it. But one thing I've kind of picked up on through the last few months, we've got a lot of things we could really digress, so to speak. But there's a lot of different things I was thinking through. The last few months would be interesting Let's Talk Trackmania subjects. And one which you both have been quite deeply involved in many kind of cases, has been a real surge in community competitions within 2021 so far. I mean, not only to the sense we're seeing a lot of, kind of lower scale tournaments, there's a lot of kind of grassroots tournaments, but there's been a lot of regional tournaments which are starting to be either in the works or have already past, of course, the French regionals, which were a bit more of a mainstay, but we had the German regionals, which have since been announced, taken place, and been very successful, and also the Benelux regionals, which were just announced about a week ago there, if I do recall correctly. But you guys were very involved in the in different capacities in the German one, and now knowing at least there seems to be a bigger picture for this, and also the Finnish Trackmania League. Don't let me forget Tattoo. But Shorty, you were involved in playing the German Trackmania Cup. I mean, was this something that when you saw the French regionals, you were really kind of hoping would come over to something like the German region, or has this just been another nightmare for Shorty, who hates grinding and doesn't want to play Trackmania anymore?
I mean, I saw the tournament, and obviously, as anyone that's passionate about Trackmania, I was like, yeah, that's really nice, and I was hoping for other regions also like hosting those events. So I'm definitely very happy about that. From a player perspective, maybe not as much. I mean, it depends, to be honest. I mean, it's great that they're using multi-style maps. That's very good, because I think that's more or less the way to go in general. But as a player, I wasn't particularly interested in playing it, I guess. But that's just me. I don't like grinding, and GGC was. I did play GGC. You got to say that, and that's mainly because the maps weren't out for that long, compared to like other tournaments where you had for the old school tournaments, you had like 1 month to prepare, and I think GGC was like more 1 week, I guess, because the first qualification. Yeah, it was 2 weeks for the first maps, and then it was 1 week. Where the other 2 maps for the playoffs came out. And I mean, the playoffs were something. So the playoffs were the actual tournament in a way, at least for me personally. So that there was just 1 week of preparing offer for the final prepare stage. So that was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it is a really lovely tournament.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Turbo, you were kind of involved a lot in the other side of things with GTC, being one of, I suppose, the main faces or the main drives behind GTC in terms of, helping out a lot with its publicity, doing a lot of streaming for it, doing a lot of casting for it. I mean, how did things kind of go your end? And give us your thoughts on this kind of surge of regional competitions in general. I mean, that could certainly mean quite a lot for the future.
Yeah, I think so as well. So it all started with Hector approaching me 1 year ago for the French Trackmania Cup. And it was the first edition. And I mean, it was a competition with a prize pool of 400 euro. And just after that, he said as a funny joke, kind of, yeah, we could do a German Cup somewhere. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then we did the second one, and he was also approaching me. And then, yeah, we just started organizing it, and he was really getting into there. And I think I was kind of the ambassador and also telling him what should go like that. He trusted me with the prize money to collect it. And I mean, the prize money just went places. We almost had 1,600 euro. And I just said, okay, every donation that I'm receiving in my stream goes into the prize pool. And also for people, if you feel like donating to this, you can do that. And I think with that, we really grew the attention because we didn't get a sponsor. And it was just out of my mind. I thought, okay, maybe like 200-300 euros coming into play or something like that. But the competition was growing and growing. And this again shows how great the Trackmania scene is and how nice and generous and also mature in this way. And it was a great display of how, well, you kind of want to present it. You want to have the publicity on Twitter. You want to have a streamer that is also drawing the groups, presenting the maps. Also Granadi was helping me in that. So it all went very good. So I'm really happy with that. And also on the other hand, that Hector trusted me that way because he organized it and I just gave him my opinion. Let's say, for example, he wanted to have this whole tournament on one day. And I said to him, I think that's not a good idea. Make a poll about that. And he was like almost certainly sure that players want to have it only one day. And then it was like 90% for 2 days, splitting it off. So I'm really grateful that he trusted me that way, because with that, I could give you the experience as a caster, what I can see and also feel when I cast. And also as a player when playing the Raider Cup, for example, the Raider Cup 2020, it was a disaster playing for 9 hours on one day. You two things about that. This is a good idea with 8 rounds where like 2 players go out each round. That is just an atrocious idea. And I'm really happy about that I could really bring my experience into that. And the tournament was, I think I could have not imagined a better one for the first edition in Germany. And now we have the Benelux coming up, which is also very nice. And there are also so many regional events. It's so cool. Actually, I was doubting it with the I think Oceanic event from SRK, but that was also a great success. We've seen a lot of new faces. And then there's also a Spanish event coming up, a Spanish tech tournament with Portugal. And no, I think only Portuguese it is. But there are so many things going up. And I think that's the right way to have like regions based and that every player can battle it out there, because if you play against Aurel or against Elcon on each cup, you're getting discouraged. It's just like that. Yeah. So it brings a platform to the communities that are maybe a bit worse, and I think that's a good thing.
100%. And I think it's something that harks back to conversations I know we had quite a long time ago, Turbo, that I think this is really a nice way to start building up regions again. I mean, we spoke in the past how you would have full regions of Trackmania players that just seemingly got wiped off of the map, like the CIS states, Russia, Ukraine, and so like countries like that. Just all of their players just disappeared, pretty much, with the exception of like maybe 1 or 2, like Euro or some full speed players or something like that. But also on the other hand, you had like the Czechoslovakian region outside of its 3 mainstays, Twin Kappa and say Danik B or something like that. That completely disappeared when it was one of the strongest regions in the past. But you also had quite a lot of nations. The Nordic region was surprisingly struggling, despite having had some of the best players ever, having had some of the strongest teams ever. A lot of kind of regions really were floundering. And I think at the very least, what's really refreshing now, seeing also, as was pointed out, I think it's the Nadal Country Championship, if I'm correct in saying. I forget exactly what the acronym is for it, but at the very least, the main thing which is really catching my eye about it is new players. It's not just, old plebs, coming back and, stealing all the top spots every time. And exactly as you said there, Turbo, it's nice to be able to play a tournament where it's not just the same people you're playing against all the time, because it is the same kind of groups of people that are getting to later stages of these tournaments. We spoke about it before, how it was like you'd have like your developing players, and then get to their level, and then you'd have the I wouldn't say like full-time Trackmania players pretty much, that are like here, and then they're fighting against people who are down here. It's so I think it will be really interesting to see a lot of these newer players get a chance to compete against each other, and also in a situation where they're competing against someone that they have an immediate connection with. They have an immediate common ground there, that they're from the same region. That opens up dialogue, that opens up connections, networking between your region and things like that. And hopefully that results in things like teams forming. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I was never exactly the fan of teams locking themselves into one country or whatever, but at the very least, it shows that it's a healthy region, and that's not something we've had in a long time outside of France. So, I mean, what kind of regions are you guys looking forward to? I mean, if you were to give me a map, what kind of regions would you like to see in some sort of tournament format like this in future?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any specific regions, I guess, that I want, because it doesn't really matter about the region, right? We are in 2021. Like, it doesn't have to be close, but probably it's gonna be it's a EU based game, so most likely it's still gonna stay EU based, because even though we are now getting like a lot of those regional championships, somebody has to host them, somebody has to like start them, and that's still probably the kind of guys that are in the scene for longer, which obviously is still perfect, but I think the kind of regions that are going to get bigger are exactly those regions where now those events are getting hosted. Because exactly like you said, it's about having events where you as a beginner player or as a new player can have fun. And that's the problem with all the other quote unquote like we had so many fun events and so many tournaments, but even a lot of those tournaments were really fun for most players, but as a beginner, even they never really had, like, you couldn't have fun there. And that's what those regional tournaments really changed, because now even if you're picking up the game as a new player, you can have so many chances at having fun in this game, even if you're not good. You got Cup of the Day, you got matchmaking, you got those regional cups as well if you want to go into esports. Like, that's pretty much what we didn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
But mainly it's going to be the old regions, probably like Norway and Czech Republic, like getting big again, probably, or you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe now Spain, Portugal. So
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah, what I think a really, really positive event that I captured is the Baltic Trackmania Cup. That was a great success. And I think one approach that is really good there is the fact that you have different divisions. So you have like the pro players, you had Bits SRK in the top league, and then also some new players, of course. And it's just cool to see that the different skill groups are batting it out, and everyone is gradually becoming better. That is really cool. But also NA, I mean, there are so many NA players right now coming up. There's Ski Freak, a great mapper. We have also Pizzle and Shield Bandits, and then people participating in those events. They're really pushing it there. So it's really cool to see that every region is just growing its place. And I think NA is probably the market that could be the biggest for racing games and everything like that, in my opinion. I think that could be the biggest market. Also, for the general interest of racing games and Trackmania in the past, I think that NA could be really nice. I mean, we have Call Junior there, of course, but who else is there? Like, there's no real NA contender, to say it like that. That is like my fact. But yeah, I mean, Paul, you said that you were kind of not inactive, but what have you gotten up to? So what event have you seen from the regionals? Have you seen this Baltic event? Have you seen any other event? Or are you just with the German, the French, and the Benelux Cup? Or did you see something else?
Well, a lot of the smaller scale regional tournaments I didn't manage to catch up on. However, I have kept my eye on the larger regional ones. So, of course, the French and German, and the BTC has evolved through the past recent times, and also this new one which just came out based upon the Nadeo maps. And as a little few stats that SRK put out there were really interesting and really cool to me, is that you were having some regions being represented in the country format for the first time ever. And I mean, considering Trackmania has had a history of having country-based tournaments, that's a very impressive it's a very impressive thing to be able to say, and also very telling of how the game's reach is extending in some ways, or at the very least, if that's not the case, that this is the right recipe to engage people who maybe were not engaged previously, you know, people who didn't feel comfortable, you know, playing in an NC or something like that, or, you know, a Nations Cup or so on previous years. But I mean, me personally, I've kind of been on the sidelines looking in, you know, checking out like casts and every now and then of these kind of tournaments. Mostly just kind of been keeping to my own projects personally. But I must say, from the outside looking in, it is very encouraging to see. Like, for example, one of the things that's been really nice for me is with the return of, I suppose you could say, a UK team coming into the Nadeo map tournament, is that it's all new faces. It's not people who were here 2-3 years ago playing, you know, with me. Like, it's not people. It's not your Saber, Leo, John Pack, you know, myself. It's not these people. It's either people who have came back after a long time away, and I mean a long time away. Looking at you, Mr. Zephyr. But yeah, also people who have came into the game. You know, who have came up through playing Nadeo maps and just playing through the, you know, playing through the campaigns and such, and you know, Cup of the Days and so on, and have integrated themselves into a kind of UK-based Trackmania community, which is very nice to see. I mean, although, as I said, I'm very much on the outskirts. I mean, I you know, like I say, I barely interact outside of my own projects at the moment. It is very nice to see a lot of people who I've never competed with in terms of UK, and I know that when I do eventually come back to play with Team UK, then it's going to be with people I didn't expect to play with. You know, it's going to be with people I didn't know previously. It's going to be a new experience for me. So that's going to be that's very interesting for myself personally. So I'm certainly hoping for a UK-based tournament, or at least some more country-based tournaments, so that we can finally, you know, get a recurring Team UK, which was always our problem in previous years. But I think a lot of nations now, it's looking good that they're having strong representation now. I mean, Baltic Trackmania Cup is a perfect example of this. I mean, if you could have said 3-4 years ago, name Baltic Trackmania players like from Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, if I'm correct, you would name the same people. You would name people like TK. You would name people like Kulve, Bits, you know, the established players. Whereas a lot of the players who have then actually been playing this tournament and evolving through this tournament are players who are really benefiting from it. So I really like seeing this format, and I hope we see more regional tournaments, and hopefully from that we get international tournaments, either, you know, NA getting involved, Asia getting involved, Oceania, South America getting more involved. And, you know, who knows, we might see the rebirth of Nations Cups in general. And I mean, that's certainly something I'd like to get back to. But I think out of the three of us, Shorty, you might actually be the only person who ever played in a Nations Cup. I mean, it was so long ago.
Which cup do you mean?
Well, what was it like? SNC was Stadium Nations Cup, and NC.
You mean those cups? Yeah. I think I'm the only one of us that
Boomer.
competed in those. Yeah. That's so long ago, actually, so it's hard to remember. It's the
What cup was
specifics.
that actually? It was before my time, right? Before my time being in the
Yeah.
Trackmania scene, like active. I was a main
Erwin played.
consumer.
Wow.
Wait,
Our
really?
producer played it and I've not. But yeah, I mean, like, I talk about it as something I wanted to come back. You know, I want to see this sort of thing back. Was it something you particularly enjoyed playing back in the day?
Well, that's a difficult question. I mean, yes. I mean, at one, like the main part about is like at the beginning already. I think you're very happy that you get chosen to at least in Germany. Like it's probably different for like the other nations where there are less players, because in Germany, like it's really difficult, like just getting into it. So you're just happy to represent Germany in a way. But then even in Germany, I think we had a lot of good training sessions together, and I think we had a lot of fun. And there are definitely some rivalries between some countries, so it's always interesting, like both playing and spectating. So I really enjoy those events, both as a player and also as a spectator.
Mm-hmm. Is that something you want to see coming back? Like, you know, some sort of kind of nations tournament or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. Mixed map style is more important and more acknowledged in the scene, which is something that wasn't like that back at the time. So back at the time, we played the different kind of map styles separately, which was fine, but had some drawbacks, like with the general point system and stuff. It wasn't really as interesting as matches could have been, maybe with other point systems. So now the map style is pretty much set on mixed. I think there are a lot more possibilities for also closer and more interesting matches as well.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And I mean, Turbo, if I can kind of pick your brains about it a little bit, like, we've seen a lot of interest not only coming within these regions, you know, a lot of different kind of French players, German players were playing in these sort of tournaments, but also, as was said previously by SRK, a very wide range of nations are fielding teams for tournaments, and that's very nice to see. I mean, what kind of factors do you think have been involved in that? I mean, what's kind of helped this happen, if I can say like that, do you think?
Wow, that's a good question. That is a really, really good question, and I think this could be a whole episode about this question. And
We've got time.
so actually, the first thing that was coming into my mind was the influence of social media, Trackmania blowing up. You were saying it beforehand. We're seeing so many new faces in the Twitch chat. You know, let's take Iridium for example. He's a moderator in the chat of Granadi, but he wasn't in contact with the game, and he's from India. He's from India. Like, you know, wow, you're a Trackmania player from India. When do you think that? Or just a person that has interacted with Trackmania from India. I think he's not even playing, but I think it's just the general exposure that Trackmania is getting at the moment, and also the interest that there's a market for the respective competitions that is coming into play. So I think that is because we just have players from those regions playing, and this is because the game is growing. And I doubt, or I just clearly feel that the game is growing. I have so many people coming into my Twitch chat saying, yo, where to buy this game? And the game has so much exposure. And I think also that is the right way to like say, okay, yeah, you have a tournament for your region. You can play in there just very casually and try. Let's see how far you go. Maybe you beat a player like Simply Nick, or you get into the final, have a chance playing against him. I think that is actually one of the things that is really important for that. Or maybe from your outside view, because you're not really involved with that anymore, like that, as you said, Paul. What do you think about it? Is there any other reason that you might think of, or maybe you, Shorty, maybe you both have an idea about that? But I think it's the general growth of the game.
Yeah, I think general growth of the game has been very important, but also one thing which I would like to say is I think been a very important factor has been the ease of accessibility in this game now into competing in a sense. So there has been the opening up of Cup of the Day. There's been matchmaking. And also specifically for this tournament, it's been very interesting to see that there is, of course, the it's based upon Nadeo maps, so it is the maps which everyone is then going to be used to, and as such, giving everyone the best opportunity to be able to participate in this sort of thing. It's not that they're going to have to go and learn some, other map pack on perhaps maps that weren't built for them. But I think the ease of accessibility has really kind of pushed forward this, allowing people from, who might have, been thinking, they're playing on, I don't know, normal servers for Trackmania 2 Stadium back in the day or whatever it was, but they never integrated into any sort of competitions, just either because they didn't know how, or secondly, it was just, it feels like too far apart from them. It feels like it's something that's just that they can't relate to as easily. And I think that's something that the likes of Cup of the Day being so well integrated, as well as things like what we were all, praying for almost in, a client, well, not a client-based, just an integrated matchmaking into the game itself, opens up a lot of doors for a lot of people just to go in and play against each other, to meet new people, to, I played against that guy, he was fun to play with, I'll add him, I'll go and talk to him, or I've found a full team that's from the same nation as me, talk to them, so on. They're just like making these little kind of networks, these little bit of connections that might be that thing that makes this person load up the game again to go and play it, that makes them keep coming back to the game. It makes them think, maybe I want to play this in the game. Maybe I want to join a team. Maybe I want to play a competition or something like that. So I think that it's a chain reaction that's been set off by, good moves and removing the roadblocks from, having players integrated deeper into the Trackmania community, and especially in a competitive spirit. But I mean, anything else that you think I might have missed?
Yeah, well,
go ahead.
Yeah, so what I actually think, I think you're definitely right, because like the integration of things that usually in Trackmania would never be integrated in the game by default, and is something that would be very hidden and difficult for players to find even. That's definitely keeping like players that enjoy the game engaged. But what I also think is very important, like Trackmania always was a huge success. Like at the very beginning, when Trackmania, like with Nations ESWC, when it launched, it was like one of the biggest games at that time. It was even like, I think at one point it was even the biggest esports game at that time compared to all other games. And the problem over the years was that just the game lost more and more players over the years, because Nadeo didn't really innovate anything about the game, and the game just stayed like it was for many years. And what they did with this new game is that they like actually like there are so many people that still have good that still remember the game and the game being good, and the marketing of the new game actually also was really good with the influencers. Like I think almost there were so many big streamers and so many big YouTubers playing the game, and even though it was maybe not the best launch, even though I think that overall I think it was a really good launch. There were some issues here and there, but minor stuff, at least for me. And I think also like Turbo can maybe say that even at the beginning of the new game, you already had a lot of more views in Trackmania. Obviously now, like 1 year after launch, it's blowing up for real. But I think already at the launch, you could like see the new game definitely has the possibility. Already had more exposure than Trackmania ever had before. So you had already new players there, and then you had the engagement throughout Track of the Day, then Cup of the Day, and now matchmaking, that keeps those new players actually happy about the game.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree with that. We can see in Cup of the Day what possibility is there. 3,000 players have there been yesterday at Cup of the Day. And I mean, it's just not me who thinks, oh yeah, I'm not getting Div 1, I'm bad. It's really hard. It is really hard, even for me as a player. And then players asking me, yeah, why are you not there? Or maybe someone else not making it to Div 1 and you think like you're bad, but there are 3,000 players playing. And it's just this daily incentive that brings people back, to Twitch. You can also see the streams, really, they are blowing up completely. They're getting so many views through this event. And this is exactly what Trackmania is in need of. This event, a daily incentive to come back. Also, matchmaking was a really good thing, but that's a different story. I think they're getting on their way. They said it's in beta, but I think there are a lot of more opportunities how they can promote it even better and not just release it accidentally again, because yeah, whatever. But it's still very, very nice to see that. It's very nice to see that. And yeah, it's definitely a great thing. And also looking into the stats, I was talking to Zyro about that today because he was at my place. Trackmania doesn't have that peak again, where we only had that peak number at May and June, where the Zerator Cup was announced and stuff like that with the watching time. Like really, now the hype is today. The hype is today. The game is growing, and I really think that this is, of course, also because of those daily incentives, the content creation being just also picked by the YouTube algorithm maybe, or just interesting for the people because they already know the game and they have played it 10 years ago, and then now they're coming back and playing it casually. Something like that. So I think it's, as you said, Paul, it's a chain reaction of all things that lead to this place, and also to the interest in, like what was my question beforehand? The interest of, just the game in different regions. I think that's my point to that.
For sure. Yeah, it is something that's very nice to see. And I think it's something that creates a very interesting question about what's next, But before we get on to that, something which I thought was going to be interesting for us to talk about, while we kind of keep things on the past for now, shall we say, since, we've not been here in 5 months. Anyway. One of the main things which we didn't really get a chance to talk about, although we were, at least me and you, Turbo, were involved in, was Trackmania Grand League. Of course, the winter season, I believe it was. Yeah.
Third season.
Winter season, which we had finished February or March, if I remember correctly. Honestly, I don't even remember what day it is most of the time. I'm really glad Let's Talk Trackmania is back, so I have some sort of stability in my week that I know one day out the week's Tuesday. That's it. That, like, everything. I woke up today and realised it was May. That's just how things are going.
What he didn't say just now is that yesterday you already thought it's Tuesday.
Yeah, that's
so he's definitely telling the truth.
That's true. Yeah, like everything just blends together for me, so I don't really remember when it finished. But the main thing is, of course, we've not really had the chance to talk about it. I mean, you could look at it. It definitely changed a lot of things up this time around. We had different combine format. We had a very interesting situation with Scrappy. And the last chance qualifier and so on. But I mean, Turbo, your boots were on the ground, so to speak. I mean, you casted it almost start to finish through PAC's involvement being very, pretty much almost in all stages apart from the last chance qualifier. But give us your thoughts on how this season of Trackmania Grand League was for you. I mean, we spoke a lot in previous seasons about how there was a lot of things that we felt we wanted changed, how the community was still very, almost mobilized into being very unhappy about some of the things that were going on. But give us some of your thoughts on how this season went.
Okay, so step 2 was PTSD from PAC with the not failing the identity, but no, jokes aside. So, I mean, point system, again, that was a pretty controversial topic. And I think this has decided a lot of things in this season, because we had also the weird situation that you've mentioned with Scrappy. He could have won, but also being demoted to Open Grand League and stuff like that. But I think also, again, a very messy ending of the season with, like, we had the Combine, we had the qualifier, the last chance that was implemented after that, where I think, was it 1 or 2 players? There was 1 player going in there,
one
right?
person
or 2?
From the
only
last
Scrappy.
chance, yeah.
There was only Scrappy, right? From the bottom 8. He made it. Yeah,
yes,
he won
exactly.
against Evan. Yeah, exactly. He won against... Okay. Yeah, now I'm up to date. But it was so messy again. You needed a degree to understand what is coming up now, how everything is working. That was really messy. And we were also talking on that on TeamSpeak together, Shorty, when we were like, hey, what is coming up now? What is today? And what is the format? And then I was looking to the 30 pages long PDF file, and this, but well, it was a bit too messy. And I hope, so that is like my hope for the next season, that the point limit will get changed. We know that, but also that everything will get a little bit more simpler, that you don't have to read through 20 pages of sheet to just know what is coming up now and understand it. That was a bit too messy, but I think else it was a great success. We had a good amount of exposure in France and also in the English-speaking countries. But what it was a bit of a downside is, for example, that Tween didn't have an org. That's a thing that I still didn't understand, that Tween didn't have an org this season because Pittsburgh Knight were dropping out. But that was a bit unfortunate. But else, I think it was a good season. It was good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd definitely agree that it was like, don't get me wrong, going into it, there was still a feeling, an almost kind of air of negativity from the kind of bad taste that was left after some of the incidents that had happened from the seasons before. And while there was some issues, as you said there, I remember even me as a streamer just finding it extremely, while I'd read up on all of it before, it was difficult to explain to people the differences between the last chance qualifier, between the combine, and between the grand finals, because they all had different formats. And even when some of them didn't, like, what was it? There was an example where you had like a final six, however, in the combine or something in the last chance qualifier, the way the map order was switched between how the actual grand final done it. And it was just like little things like that that just made it so confusing for me. I'm messaging Softy in the Discord like, have you done this wrong? But no, evidently it's just, whatever. But yeah, there was, some short issues, but the main thing is everyone seemed to enjoy it. Like, there was a lot of when people first saw the format, they were like, not really sure how I like the sound of this. It kind of didn't look very good when you had someone like Spam the first time this format was around do really well, but not get through even the first round just because he wasn't winning rounds, kind of thing. But it still came out to be quite exciting, I feel like. It still came out to be a very good spectacle. You've had the drama of the likes of storylines being created by virtue of having a last chance qualifier. Albeit maybe like it shouldn't have really had the situation where Scrappy nearly qualified for the grand final. He got third, yet he could have also got demoted from Trackmania Grand League at the same time. And I mean, you look at the grand final he had with Evon, the last chance qualifier, it was 3-2 if I remember correctly, or at the very least it was close. I mean, imagine that going the other way and then he gets eliminated, yet he wins the league, But yeah, it seems to be that things are being done now. Things, a lot of the things we used to complain about are being changed up. They're being switched up. The points loss is either gone or being mostly removed. It seems to be they're kind of nailing down this final format into a way which it looks good but also works well. And I think, given the feedback they get, they should hopefully be able to improve it a bit more and hopefully bring, a more well-rounded, and I think the thing you said there, which I found very important, Turbo, is simple. It's something that's very easy to understand. It's very easy for you to look at and know what's happening, So it's, if you're not catching on to the first few rounds, you can just jump in and pick up straight back from, whatever stage it is at the moment. But yeah, Tween not getting an org really was very disappointing, especially if a player of his caliber, I mean, might not have been able to turn it on the full way throughout the season itself. But I mean, Tween on his day can defeat anyone. We know that, even in multi-style. But but he's not eliminated. He's got more seasons to go, and hopefully that means another organization is realizing what a kind of what kind of value Tween really brings to them, and hopefully we see that coming forward. But I mean, Shorty, you were obviously not in the same position as me and Turbo, as we were, of course, in the casting side of things, and then more involved with the players and the organizational side of things. But give us your kind of outside view. You sticking your feet up, being able to relax while me and Turbo are shouting our heads off about crashes and things like that. But how were you feeling about Trackmania Grand League?
Yeah, so I was in the lucky situation that this season I actually pretty much watched everything of it, and overall I think our opinions pretty much agree completely about it. I mean, yes, definitely at the beginning of it things were kind of negative, maybe also because the point system didn't change, even though at that time pretty much everyone already said that the point loss is not really a good thing. But well, that's how it started, and that's how it went. And yeah, I mean, in the end, overall, everything was very enjoyable, I guess. It was interesting to watch. Format, I think me as a player, I think I personally always look at it as from a player's point of view, even though I'm not playing. What I think, except from the point loss system, which is getting changed already, the system itself, also for the combine, for the last chance, for the I don't even know how the finals were called anymore. The system itself was really good, and the UI they created for that also was really helping to understand it. And if they can refine the system and make it more simple, like you already said, and don't change it every single mini step and make mini changes to it, then it's going to be pretty good looking forward. I mean, obviously the situation of Scrappy, maybe they should also find a solution for that. So if they want to keep this the last chance, which is a nice little addition to the team GL in my opinion, then they might also find to like avoid that situation in your seasons as well. But yeah, overall, a really good season, I think. Like, you can't really fault Nadir for most things. And the things that most people disagree with are definitely getting changed or at least adjusted for next season. So I think a lot of people can look forward to that.
100%. I definitely agree with you in that kind of sense. I mean, things are definitely looking up for Trackmania Grand League in general. I mean, there's a lot of very high-tier players involved that's been getting a lot of exposure, and it is getting refined in the way that people were wanting going forward and things like that. I mean, the only things we're now waiting for really is, of course, a full kind of 16-man roster of players and organisations, of course, hopefully, going forward. But also one of the things that people will be looking forward to, hopefully, will be an official stream. And I mean, we were talking about it a little bit previously. I mean, there's a few casters out there who don't have orgs. So, I mean, I can definitely see that happening some point soon. But it's really impossible to speculate in terms of how Nadia will handle that side of things, as it's really been kind of their own way of how they do it. It's not necessarily been by any set medium of, you know, how other people do it or anything like that. They tend to have their own kind of way of going about things. But just in terms of Trackmania Grand League, just before we kind of head off of that, I mean, was there any main surprises kind of results-wise in terms of the season? I mean, just a few guys didn't really catch up with that at all. And qualifying into the top 9, so top 8 plus the last chance qualifier, we had Bren, Aurel, Afi, Papu, Gwen, Scrappy, Mudda, Carl Jr. and Pack. And then, of course, winning, we did have Carl Jr., Pack second, Scrappy third, Mudda fourth, Gwen and Papu 56th, Afi, Aurel and Bren 7th to 9th. Is there any surprises in terms of how that order really came out for you? Or at the very least, you know, who qualified, who didn't qualify, anything like that at all?
Mudda was definitely a surprise for me. He was really an open, like a blank sheet of paper for me. But let's see, he played really good. He played really, really, really good there. And I'm really happy for him that he has made it that far with his attitude and also his like working on himself, from being a player who said, yeah, I'm going to leave Trackmania because of my mental health, to a player that is participating as one of the best and just being on this level. It's just very nice to see that. So nice performance from Mudda. On the other hand, I think that it's I thought that Bren will maybe make it into the top 8. I would really see him in there. And also I thought that Gwen would play better, but of course there were reasons. He was focusing on school and stuff like that. But else, I think that this was not clear in this way. But again, Carl Jr. Pack were really fast. They also battled out afterwards. And then, I was also maybe thinking that Scrappy did a bit better, but the season is getting stacked every time. We also have good players coming in now. Evon and Link, unfortunately, being replaced by Binks and also by Worka. Looking forward also how they will play, but it will not get easier for a player like Spam Massa. Let's just take Spam, for example. He's a player like Riolo who's just very consistent, and I think that it will be hard for him to beat a player like Pack and Carl Jr. So that is my opinion about that. What do you think, Toby?
So what I think, I mean, you already talked about Mudda. I think we kind of agree. obviously he's a really sick player, and he pretty much showed in the combine in the season before that he's definitely there to, like, not just trying to survive, but trying to win something. And he definitely showed it this season. But what I think was more of a surprise for me, but what I actually want to know what Scotty thinks about that. I think the biggest surprise for me personally is that Granadi didn't manage to win against Worker. I mean, yes, Worker is a really good player, and I'm interested to see how he's gonna do in the actual matchups in the Grand League next season. But I for sure thought Granadi is gonna just stomp him in the match, just to put it bluntly.
Yeah, I suppose it's. I mean, in terms of if we isolate Granadi into his kind of role, so to speak, it's one of these things that I think has really something I was going to talk about later, but we've not really had a lot of high-tier tournaments that people like Granadi, Worker, Banks, and so on have had access to. You know, we've had Trackmania Grand League, and that's been pretty much it. I mean, you had your Gamers Assembly and so on, but Mixed still hasn't really evolved to a point where there has been really top high-tier tournaments that everyone's had access to outside of Open Grand League, which has been a bloodbath. You know, people trying to qualify through it, then disconnecting 1 week, and that's it, game over. People try to qualify through, and then, you know, they have to miss 1 week, and, you know, that's it, game over, so on and so forth. But so I think what was very interesting to see, because there has been this kind of new wave of players who really aren't tested at this level of competition, in my opinion, and that includes pretty much everyone who was contending for qualification outside of maybe people like Muquatro, for example. But it was really going to be interesting for me to see how these players did cope under this circumstance, because this is the highest pressure match they're probably ever going to have had. Because, I mean, sure, they might have played in a tournament, you know, for a few hundred to up to 1,000 prize pool, but getting into Trackmania Grand League is a whole different ball game, both in terms of the potential that gives you for earnings, if that is what you're in it for, but also in terms of just simply the exposure that gives you and the potential for exposure that gives you. I mean, look at how the likes of Massa has completely skyrocketed through his involvement with Trackmania Grand League and his associated brand, Berlin International Gaming. I mean, not that I'm saying it would have been shit or anything like that, but I'm quite confident in saying that if Massa wasn't intricately involved with the likes of Felixan, you know, Trilux and so on, and he wasn't playing actively in Trackmania Grand League, he wouldn't have a channel nearly to the same size of which he does now. And I think that shows the opportunity both in terms of creating your own personal brand and converting that into something that, you know, other fields like your Twitter following, your Twitch following, you know, what these guys have a potential to be able to get is something a completely different level from anything they would have done before. So that's why I was interested to see if these people could handle it. You know, if Granadi could handle the real top tier pressure. I mean, that was always the question everyone was asking about Gwen, you know. That he was stomping everyone in these as we affectionately called it fucking 10 years ago when we were on the last episode, shit cups. Then, you know, we look at that and it was we were always saying, you know, what's going to happen when he goes to a real top tier tournament, when he goes up against the real big guys. So yeah, I mean, just because of course Worker and Banks won that singular match doesn't mean that, you know, Granadi's going to be choking under pressure or anything like that. But I definitely think it's going to be interesting moving forward to see if this then if we see any more kind of higher tier tournaments like this, if we see the doors to Trackmania Grand League opening a little bit more. You know, right now it's only a set defined 2 players get in, 2 players go out kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's this season, you know, fixed a lot of things and also answered a lot of questions, but also raised a little few more. I mean, what do you think the future is for these kind of players? I mean, we see Binks and Worker coming in, but also we see players now really getting tested at the top level. You know, we saw Link and Mudda going in last season with very, very different results. So what was your kind of thoughts on what we're going to be seeing in future in Trackmania Grand League, Turbo?
So I think the improvement of Granadi is tremendous. So 1.5 years ago, he was as good as me on Stadium, and now he's in there dominating Cup of the Days. He's really doing it in a good fashion, 4 times winning it, and I think that he will definitely promote to the Trackmania Grand League next season. Arguably one of the favorites for me, but of course, then the pressure is coming in again if he can cope the pressure. But what I would really like for the future is maybe having a second division in the Trackmania Grand League with a significant lower price pool, or just having it like, okay, yeah, there's a player, they can scout it. And, just getting into the Trackmania Grand League is so exclusive. It's so exclusive, and I think that's not the right approach of having only one top division, 16 set players, four spots are in there each year. Annually, 4 players can promote or demote, and this is like, it's so exclusive, and I think that this should change in this regard, and that we really need a second division in this case, maybe a price pool of only 1,000 euro or something, which is still a lot, but I don't know. It's just something that I was thinking about when you were talking about that. But I think that the competition itself will be getting closer and closer, because now with Worker and also Binks, they really have to prove something. But I think they will not be dead last every match. Like, we don't have a Matt anymore. No trash talk intended, of course. But Matt was just crashing in the first turn, and then it was GG for him. It's not the set that he brings in the Trackmania Grand League. You know what I'm talking about. Matt is a
Yeah.
very, very good player, arguably one of the best trial players out there. But he just not brings the set of performing under pressure or performing when it matters on a tech tournament. So no, like, really trash talk intended there. But I think the level is just rising and rising in the TMGL.
I mean, here's the kind of thing which I think has kind of set me in the mood for it. We've seen how opening the doors a little bit more to the competitive side of thing has really paid dividends for Trackmania in terms of the matchmaking, Cup of the Day, and so on. I think that then closing off Trackmania Grand League to its marathon of a qualifier, if we'll say it like that, isn't really the best way to go. I mean, don't get me wrong, we could sit here for hours and we probably wouldn't find the best way to do it, but there's plenty of potential out there for people to, or for systems out there maybe not like, okay, right, now we're going to make it 5 people go out of TMGL or something like silly like that, but something that will allow people to reasonably be able to either progress through their way to Trackmania Grand League. In terms of, like, I don't know, if I just rip an idea straight out of another project they've got, what about a kind of a loosely based division system? They kind of have that with the top 16, then the gold, then the silver, then the bronze. But what if you kind of expanded that a little bit? Again, not saying that's a great idea. I've not thought of it any further than about 5 minutes. But I mean, like, there's a lot of things out there which I think, even if you're not going to make it easier for people to get into Trackmania Grand League, is going to allow more people to truly enjoy the Trackmania Grand League experience. Because at the moment, if we're talking Open Grand League, you have people who will play the OGL step themselves, but they'll just get a number. They'll just get a set amount of points and a number, and that's their rank. There's not really anything extra with that. They're competing against, they could be competing against a completely different field of people. But I think through tournaments that do have a kind of league format, it's I think something that handled that really well was Trackmania Formula League. Having a division-based format, how they've kind of handled that in that kind of sense. It just goes to show that there's a lot of options out there, and there's a lot of ways that something could perhaps be done to maybe not open the doors to Trackmania Grand League, but allow more people, as I said, to get that experience.
Yeah, it's a good point there, and also those events like Trackmania Formula League again showed us that the casual side is more important. That this should not be neglected, and that's also like my standpoint. Trackmania goes into the direction of being more of a let's say casual game. and it shouldn't be as exclusive as the Trackmania Grand League is at the moment, in my opinion, because you have the TMFL. A lot of people are coming back to that. Let's take Shorty. Shorty is participating in that himself and having a lot of fun coasting around with a freewheel because he has no fuel left, and yeah, he's just doing mad things. But Trackmania needs those directions. I can see that when I cast competitions. I had an event, there was the Prodigy Cup. It was really, you also need a degree to understand that one. But we had also a winner bracket and the loser bracket, and then Speed Self was the player winning the loser bracket. You see, those are just different skill sets onto and off to their respective rank. They got ranked into that and then played it out. But of course, the downside is then a player like Rin had really difficulties with his internet and stuff, and he has been eliminated and he didn't want to play the loser bracket anymore. So that was the downside of that. But I think the trend is going into multi-division styles to include every skill set of players, and that's also what we have to see in the TMGL.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just thinking about TMGL, because you like started talking about that. If you think about it, the main problem maybe about the OGL system is that, like you already said, it's like a marathon. Like you're fighting a marathon for multiple weeks, and also the point system in the OGL was the same as in the TMGL, so the point system also wasn't really that helpful in that sense. But then after that marathon, you again have to play for the top spots, then again for the top spots, then you have to fight off against like a TMGL, an actual TMGL player. And if you then lose after you won so much, then you immediately drop down completely. Like you don't drop down to like maybe second division or maybe even a third division. You just drop down completely. And I think that's maybe the biggest problem about that. Like if you have a second division or maybe even a third division, then you can like remove that problem. Like, oh, you want to have, you don't need to have like 20 divisions like TMFL or like a Cup of the Day. You don't need to have a division for every single level of players, but you have to like make it reasonable. Like, so someone that wants to get better in Trackmania doesn't have to invest like years until he finally has even like maybe a slight chance. So if you like have like Division 2 and Division 3, for example, then you would like invest maybe half a year to get good in Trackmania, and then you already have the skill set needed to at least get maybe into Division 3, and then like you have the incentive of keeping on trying to get like into Division 2 and then maybe into Division 1. And right now you just grind for half a year, win maybe so many matches, and then in the final match you just screw it up maybe.
A good point.
And then you're down to 0 again.
Point.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a thing which I think kind of takes us over nicely to something else I wanted to talk about, is that we talk about how Trackmania Grand League is, it feels, it might not be specifically closed off, but it is a marathon to get part of. And as you're saying there, you can do all the best kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden, you've lost the final match and you've just been reset to 0, and then you have it. But here's a thing. Now, what I wanted to talk a little bit about, since we've talked a lot about what's been happening since we've been away and things like that, but I want to kind of get a renewed perspective on how we see the future going, and either things we want for the future, or now that the lay of the land's changed a little bit, lay of the land has changed a little bit, then we will be able to see or guess how things are going to progress. And one thing which I think is important is more events which are of a high tier. Now, we do have TMWC, which is going to be coming up soon, but I think Trackmania is getting the kind of exposure, it's getting the kind of interest, it's getting the kind of involvement that I would expect it to then kick into another gear. I would hope for it to kick into another gear. At the moment, you really only have you really have a very slight separation. You have Nadeo tournaments, which are obviously very well, very well performed, as we've seen through the most recent Trackmania Grand League. I mean, we only had very minor issues with that. It was very exciting, very successful. And of course, Trackmania World Cup, I believe it's World Cup, of course, an old format with the new maps and so on and that kind of thing. But I would like to see it getting kicked into another gear, because you have these two tournaments and then you have community cups. You have community-based cups, which normally have no prize pool, have crowd-funded prize pool, or have a very minimal kind of, say for example, you do have prize pools, but it's coming in from someone who's already deeply involved in Trackmania, like a Numalops, an Evo, a Rewalls, or something like that, who are pouring money into something already, but I mean, not getting into the financial side of things or anything like that. But what I would like to see is, I'd like to see more tournaments. There's a lot of very high tier tournament organizers out there. Obviously you have your ESL, you have your, of course, back in the days, DreamHack. I mean, you have so many different ones like this, and we've had them in the past in Trackmania. Not that I'm saying that let's get ESL back or something like that, but I think there needs to be kind of more parties being brought into Trackmania that can also help carry a little bit of this on their shoulders. Instead of it just being the community funding their own prize pools, or Nadeo doing it all themselves. I think, you had Gamers Assembly, which was once a year, which was the LAN event, which Nadeo paid for anyway, but it still gave that S-tier event for the time it's around. And I would like to see more of that. I want to see more high tier events, because the problem is, at the moment, right? You have Trackmania Grand League, which will be on for a few weeks in the year, maybe twice a year, right? You have Trackmania World Cup, which is happening for its first time. Maybe it will happen more, maybe it won't. But then, other than that, you have to kind of pick through community Discord. You have to pick through Twitch channels, Twitter, to find another tournament which isn't going to be of a remotely high profile as a Trackmania Grand League. I mean, you have something like a GTC or a French Regionals, but it's not comparable when you talk about Trackmania Grand League. I would like to see, more parties getting involved and kind of dealing with this middle ground, because, I mean, me personally, I just want to see the top tier players playing more. I want to see this kind of exposure that they're generating being used more, because at the moment, your top tier players are only coming out if the prize pool's big enough, and we don't really have any tournaments that outside of the top tier that really do that. So you never see these players in tournaments anymore. You maybe see them when they do like a fun team tournament once a year, maybe. Or you see it in the event that one player, Massa, goes to play the German regionals or something like that. But I think a lot of these players, I would like to see them getting involved more. But I mean, I appreciate it as much in a kind of sense where they might feel that they're not interested in anything else, or it's not enough money, or it's not enough. It's just too much time for not enough of getting back or anything like that. But going forward, what do you feel is the kind of next step for where we're going? I mean, we've spoken about the kind of, I wouldn't say surge, but the rise of national tournaments about all across the world. There's different teams popping up, like regionals, like Singapore was being mentioned, and El Salvador was playing together and matchmaking and things like that, like all little things like this. But what does this translate to you going forward in the next year, the next 2 years? Do you see this being a fact that maybe we're going to see the rise of nations tournaments more, or that we're going to see more international participation? Give us an overview of what you think is going to happen in the next long term.
So I think the only logical fact here, or the only logical point, is to put them together, have a playoffs with them, or you just organize something where you maybe rank something into tiers and then say this country is playing against that country, or maybe even do team competitions for the fun, and then maybe have play day, I don't know, Germany versus France or something like that. Maybe also do that in tiers, but it's hard to really give a futuristic view of that or what will happen in 1 year, because we could be here and think, okay, yeah, there could be more tournaments with a lot of prize pool that you've mentioned, but we could also be at this point still. But of course, something has to change in that way. But it also has to change for the pro players being more involved, playing competitions that are more high tier, as you've mentioned, but also casual players or players who are not that as good are involved. So I think is more tournaments the answer then, and then maybe 2 or 3 high tier tournaments. I'm not sure about that though. I'm not sure what I would change, but I think the engagement that every country is playing against each other in a sort of like competition where you say, okay, Massa and Dexter have been first and second in the German Trackmania Cup. They will definitely play against and Link and also Gwen. Yeah, Link and Gwen play against them in a fashion that you have this highly competitive playing field there, also with an open qualifier, maybe something like that, and then maybe also a casual event where we have a team or like a competition for all the regions in the world, where you have like maybe an S tier event with a best player, then an A tier event where only those set of players can partake in, I don't know, something like that.
I like the ideas. What I personally think is that maybe the main problem right now. Obviously, you can debate or want Trackmania having to be an esports game in the first place or not, because for most people it's a community-based game. But obviously, Nadeo is trying to push it as an esports title, and for it to be a successful esports title that can actually like work, then what we need is other parties that are not Nadeo, like basically sponsors, actually picking up the game and like host. They don't have to host their own events. It would already work if they like pick up GTC or like the French regionals or even like the other regional tournaments. But basically, we need the game being open to like new sponsors that think, yes, Trackmania, or let's host a game, and it has to actually like also pay off for them. That's what we need, because right now every single prize pool is, as you already said, either paid by Nadeo themselves, which is obvious because they want to push their game, or it's by the community themselves, which is also not something that can work in the long run. So you gotta get some sponsors, pretty much. That's the thing, because then if you have those sponsors, then you can like think about the actual like tournaments. But all those ideas with like what you just said, Turbo, with like maybe Link and Ben playing against like Massa and Dexter. I mean, yeah, that's a cool show match. But why would they play it if there is no sponsor backing it? And if it's Nadeo again, then at some point you're gonna have a problem, because it has to like work in a way, right? So you pretty much need sponsors sponsoring prize pools for the game, hosting maybe their own events or hosting other events, and it has to be lucrative for them as well. Because then if they see, yes, putting money into Trackmania is worth it, then obviously like they might do more, like increase the prize pool or host something else, and then the tournament scene can grow. But otherwise, it can't grow based on Nadeo and the players themselves. That's not gonna work.
Good point. That's a good point. So a little bit like not a gamers assembly, but a tournament that is coming back every time and also has a sponsorship or like a long-term motivation for the organization to stay in the game. Because I mean, also SRK was saying it beforehand, it's really hard to find a sponsor in Trackmania for an event, because there's not like it's not worth for them to do that. Also, when I was or when we were organizing it for the German Trackmania Cup, it was really hard to find a sponsor, and we didn't find a sponsor. So it's really hard, and yeah, that's what I have to say.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's definitely an interesting place it's in now, because, I mean, you would have it where a lot of people would say, "Oh, if the game was bigger, we could have this or we could have that." But now the game is getting bigger, and it's like a lot of those kind of people are like, "Wait, what do we do now?" You know, like what's the next kind of step? I mean, I can only say what I would like. I would love to be able to. I mean, you know, pandemic permitting and all the rest of that. That you know, going back to LAN events, I would love that opportunity. You know, I would love to see players competing at LAN events. You know, that's the thing for me. And even when the game was at its lowest point recently, so like 2017, where, you know, you had Gamers Assembly and Trackmania Pro League, and that was pretty much it. Then even still for that, you know, there was still a highlight of the year, and that was, you know, something like Gamers Assembly. There was a LAN event, and I would love to see LAN events returning. But also the thing is that at the moment, I mean, I don't know how Gamers Assembly is going to be planning that in future. But of course, Nadeo, they can organise LAN events if it is in their interest for something like Trackmania Grand League, for the TMWC. But also, I mean, it can't just be shouldered to do on them, especially if they're not interested in doing it. I understand they've got a new kind of green policy that I don't really know anything about, I'll be honest, so I'm not going to get into that. But if we kind of talk about it in the kind of sense that, I mean, like, you don't have it in any other esports that, say, Riot Games doesn't do all the tournaments themselves, you know? Valve doesn't do all the tournaments themselves. Not that I'm saying, oh, you know, we should do it the same as, you know, fucking the biggest of the big, but what I'm saying is that I would like to see higher tier tournaments that Nadeo doesn't have to do. You know, doesn't have, maybe they put the prize pool for it that attracts the players or whatever else. But I mean, it would be nice to see, you know, a LAN event still being supported. You know, that players will travel to, that players will get involved in. That's something I'm definitely hoping for in future. Hoping that Trackmania's increased popularity does mean that more people will have the opportunity to share in some of the experiences I did. I mean, when I went to LAN events and when I watched LAN events were some of the most interesting times I've spent in Trackmania. So when I met Shorty for the first time was actually at a LAN event. So yeah, I mean, it's something I would definitely hope to see. You know, I mean, I only say something like ESL because it's the first one that comes to my head. But I mean, I would love to see, you know, and ESL, even if it's just one of their German shows, you know, okay, they're hosting a small event, you know, something like that, or, you know, so, you know, a DreamHack tournament circuit that goes all throughout Europe, you know, occasionally host Trackmania events, for example, something like that. But I mean, I'm not going to be the one that's going to say, like, this is the way we should do it, this is how you do it, this is who should do it, anything like that. I'm just saying what I'd like to see in the future. And I mean, I think a few people would like to see LAN events back.
Definitely.
Yeah, but of course, also the current situation is not really allowing it. You know, it's not really allowing it. And also, I've talked to a lot of people about potential ideas. I also had that idea of maybe like booking a hall or something with an event, maybe for people who, yeah, are just very in the Trackmania community, maybe from Germany even, that people are coming over, sleeping at that place or not, then you have an offline event there. I think this is now more realizable than ever. And also doing those things, like even without any event or something, so just some community building. It's just an important factor that is missing right now, because also, like, the most positive memories that I have from Trackmania are outside of Trackmania, outside the game. It's being in Prague, it's making something with people, and just being at the Raider Cup. You know, those things, they're really missing, and I hope that they will just come back very soon, after the pandemic is done.
If you already got that down that road, I think something I definitely want to say. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but if you think about it, I mean, yes, it's very sad that at the moment LAN parties aren't possible, and it's a big part of Trackmania. But on the other hand, this lockdown is possibly also one of the big reasons why Trackmania is in the hype now. So I think we can, like, not maybe not being happy about it, but I think we can, like, appreciate that that even though it's definitely a sad time for pretty much everyone right now, that our scene has at least some positive out of it. And going forwards, when things quiet down again, we can also obviously can have LAN events now again, and we can have those LAN events maybe potentially with more players and more spectators than ever.
Good point, yeah. Good point, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, coming back to LAN events, I mean, when I attended LAN events through 2017 until 2019 was when I attended LAN events. It was during the times where Trackmania wasn't very hyped up, but still you were having from anywhere from 64 to 130 plus players that were going to these events either to play or just to attend, just to have fun. I mean, Giants Cup had something like 200 to 300 people there, and that was an incredible experience. One of my favourite tournaments, certainly I've been to. But also, you had like the gamers assemblies that would have like 128 people in tech alone, you know. And I would love to see having like some sort of multi-style tournaments along with any other sort of dedicated tournaments you want to run if there's people who still actually play Canyon out there. Shots fired. Then having little tournaments that you can hold at a LAN event there, like a multi-style tournament, as any secondary tournaments you want to have. Or if you're just having, like I said, if it is part of some sort of tournament circuit, something like that, one tournament every, 3 months, every 6 months, something like that, I don't know. But it's something that I'll hope won't be too long and returning. I hope will actually return in the first place. Because there's a lot of people out there who haven't experienced it, who have wanted to experience it, and there's a lot of people out there who, whenever I'd be speaking to someone new in the community, and if they would ask me, I would tell them that LAN events was always my favourite time in Trackmania. I mean, Turbo will know it from the Zerator Cup. Shorty will know it from the Gamers Assembly. It's always a very fun time, but also. Yeah, the nest. But yeah, but the thing that I think has really LAN events really zoned in for me personally, and which I think is a really good thing that Trackmania has brought to myself, and which I would like to see brought to more people, is the connections that Trackmania has brought me, especially through the people I've met through Trackmania, has been that I've then been able to meet up with them in real life. I've went to Canada for people I've met in Trackmania. I went to the Netherlands for people I've met in Trackmania. Vienna for people I've met in Trackmania. Norway, fucking Prague, the iconic trip itself. But yeah, there's France multiple times and so on and so forth. There's been multiple places I've went just because of Trackmania, either because people I met through Trackmania or for events that happen in Trackmania. And that's an opportunity that I think a lot of people through this stage really should be given. Well, they should really be given this opportunity, returning to events and also really making those connections between their fellow players. I mean, a specific one for me, Gamers Assembly 2018, I really got to know a lot of people in the French scene. Players that I'd not really spoken to a lot before, but you talk to everyone at LAN events. So I think that it's something really special about Trackmania. I think our LAN event culture was kind of unique in that kind of sense. So I would really like to see something like that coming back. It was never like a massive PUBG tournament where you'd have, 300,000 prize pool. You'd have like 60 players up on the stage at one time, and then you never see them again after the tournament. You have it's not like a League of Legends tournament where it's in a massive stadium all by itself. Trackmania LAN culture was really special, and that's my main hope for the future. But I mean, there's a lot of potential out there, not only for LANs, but as we spoke about earlier, communities up and coming. Asia's looking good, as SRK was saying previously. I mean, Malaysia's even looking about getting a few teams together. So, I mean, just as kind of closing thoughts here is for you guys, since we last spoke, have you become more optimistic about Trackmania? How's your kind of opinion? How's your kind of mood changed about it since then?
Yeah, I've gotten more optimistic, really. So because I feel it myself. I see the competitions and also the growth of the game. So I'm getting more optimistic. More people means more opportunities in this regard.
Yeah, I think I'm a person that can definitely talk about both positive sides and negative sides. I'm not gonna go deeper into the negative sides, but that isn't really like okay. That sounds wrong. It's not. That's not. I don't. I'm definitely very positive about the game and about how it's gonna be developing in the future. I'm just saying that I know some inside stuff that is not always something that you want to know, I guess. And yeah, maybe even that can change in the future. It's not something that drastic in itself, so definitely something that also can improve and change. So overall, I mean, we can all see it right now already. I mean, the game is getting bigger, so where can you be not optimistic about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
for
is your
sure.
opinion, though, Paul? What is your opinion? Because you're a bit of you're like outsider, let's say like that, but you're
Yeah,
not really involved that much. So
it's weird to say that I'm a bit of an outsider, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, while I find myself being less involved, in the broader scheme of things in Trackmania, I still see that it's going on a good path. It seems like, at the very least, I'm seeing signs which are hopeful to me. I'm seeing signs that countries that are getting involved that I never even knew had players. They're getting involved in competitions. Never mind just playing the game. The fact that we're even able to support the idea of having regional tournaments in a lot of these different kind of places. I mean, I remember, like, we were talking about whether we'd even be able to support a German one because of the amount of players that we'd had even in the recent years. That just stopped playing or went back to the old game, like as we said, like the old HPD or Easy Killers lineups just disappeared in the course of a year or two, and in some forms kind of came back or every whatever. But I mean, it's been very hopeful. I would say it's been very interesting, and it's. Do you know one thing which I think this new game has been really good for? Is it's not only been bringing new faces into the Trackmania sphere, so to speak. Anyway, it's also brought back players who maybe get switched off by the game. I mean, if I can just say a little bit about the UK scene and how that's been a good indication for me, is I was really pessimistic about the UK scene once I got involved. From 2015 and 16, there was virtually no people who were regularly playing in the UK scene, apart from Pac, who was only pretty much playing top tier tournaments by himself, Jono, who was on his way out, and then after that, there really was no one else. There was maybe one Canyon player, there was one full speed player, but never really got together, never spoke. I mean, I didn't even know they existed personally. I mean, apart from Pac, of course, fucking he existed. But anyway, as the years gone past, it's like I'm seeing French regionals come together and all these new faces come in for like the Zerator boom and things like that. And no one else came into the UK scene. No one else came on to play. I mean, I would look at the leaderboards, like through the Nadeo maps or whatever, and all these players, I've never seen them play in public. And to this day, some of these players I've still never seen them in public. But one thing which was really made me happy when Trackmania, when the new game came out, is that a lot of the players that were in the UK scene when the UK scene was really popular. I mean, UK used to have ESL UK premierships. You used to have properly organised premierships with like thousands of pounds worth of cash prize. UK scene used to be very well looked after, if we'll say it like that. Had some very strong players. I mean, we talk about the players in times gone past, players like Saber, players like Leo, Hot Swat and Yizu and so on. I know most of you guys won't have a fucking clue who some of them are, but UK's had some very high pedigree players, and then I come in and I'm like, where are they? They're all gone, they're all retired, they're all in the past. And one thing that's been really good about this game, and one thing that is now making me feel much more optimistic, is that when this game came out, older players slowly became integrated again. I mean, a few of them are here in my chat now. J Nemesis, Zephyr, Reactor, Leo, Saber. These guys are all hanging about a little bit more again. Hot Swat came back for a little mess around. Bigley's. I mean, I'm saying this to, in just kind of rhyming off names here, but a lot of these players got involved again. A lot of these players started speaking, started talking to other players, and now UK has a lovely Discord with a good amount of players in it, players that I've never met before, and they're playing in events together now. They're talking together. They're going in Discord together. They're playing Cup of the Day together, TMFL, and it's like to go from me feeling alone almost in terms of UK and Trackmania to then feeling like, wow, there's so many people here now. And it gives me hope because I know this is happening in other regions. This same kind of thing is happening in other regions. And I think that is a key to growth. And for the game in general is having a lot of people feeling engaged in the game, having a lot of people who feel like they've got a place or they've got people they can connect with. That's something that I feel has been really important and something that makes me feel good about. I know that I can go back and play with more UK guys now. That's something that I didn't feel I'd be able to say in Trackmania, and I think that's really made me more optimistic about the game going forward. I know you guys, Germans, you've got like fucking 500 million players playing in your region anyway, so you don't understand. But yeah, Romania's doomed, so unlucky, never mind. But yeah, I mean, and Erwin's just going to kick me from the group call any moment now. But I mean, before we end up rambling on too long, we have been here for about an hour and a half. I mean, if any of you guys have any final questions, then do feel free to hit us up. If not, of course, we will be back. We're back a little bit of a half an hour late because of some people, not pointing elbows, we're back a little bit late, but not to worry. We're going to be back at the usual time and the usual.
Me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Don't make me expose you to LuckersTurbo. Anyway, I think it will be really nice to have Let's Talk Trackmania back. We're going to be back hopefully now weekly, every week, same time, same place as always, 8 p.m. Although not half 8. But 8 p.m, of course, we'll be here, and we'll all be here. I'd hope we've not scared Shorty away, or at least you guys haven't scared Shorty away, looking at all you in the chat. But yeah, it's been a pleasure to be joined by you guys once again. Any final thoughts now that we are back in the flow again? We're back in the groove again.
Yeah, I actually wanted you to talk first because I'm the new guy, so I don't know. Whatever, I can also start. So yeah, I think firstly, I'm happy to be here. I'm still happy to be here. I hope everyone in the chat, because I don't even have it open, is also happy that I'm here. Yeah, sorry, I'm just focusing on you guys right now. Yeah, I'm happy about it in general. I don't find any other words to say it, but I'm enjoying it, and I hope we're gonna have a lot of more interesting topics to talk about also in the next couple of weeks. And I can already assure you that it's definitely possible for me to be there at 8 and not 8:30.
And maybe I was the one late. We don't know. We have no idea who that was. But I think you're a great addition to the podcast, Shorty, and we have, of course, a lot of set topics coming up later, but this was a bit all over the place, recapping everything and also our thoughts. It was great, and I'm also really happy about that it's coming back. It's coming back like in a fashion and not like, we're gonna do it this year. I mean, there was someone asking me, I'm not sure if it was Eric or someone else, and he was like, are you gonna do that in the next year as well? And I was like, and all the people were like, you're not gonna continue after it. And then mid of January, and we're stopping. So I hope that we can have a schedule back again, that it's every Tuesday, because I really miss that, recapping everything, just expressing your thoughts and discussing with people about things that are in our world important,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we'll certainly will not slip back into the 5-month cycle. So we'll have more than 2 episodes a year. So you've at least got that to look forward to. I mean, we'll all look different, maybe, I'll be replaced. Who knows? We'll just come back for a completely different cast in 5 months and just hope it all goes fine. But yeah, it has been a pleasure once again being joined by you guys, with a lot of people in the chat having fun with us, and it's been really interesting to see your thoughts as well. But as always, check us out on social media if either you do want to keep track of ongoing projects either done by Mr. Shorty himself, Mr. Turbo himself, or me, and also, of course, ESAC, which does bring us this podcast once again, and will always bring us it in such a high quality that you have been able to enjoy today. Once again, big thanks to General Offensive for hooking us up with a new shiny fancy graphics package. But yeah, before I get my tongue too much tied, it has been a pleasure being joined by you guys once again. If you have any suggestions and requests, we're not jukebox, but you can certainly let us know if you have any thoughts you want us to talk about or anything like that. But it's been a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. That will be us for tonight. We will leave you. We'll tuck you into bed. I'm not going to sing for you, but I hope everyone has a very lovely night, and we will be joining you once again next week, same time, same place. But everyone, have a good night, and it's bye from us.